Hello, welcome to this video on the Paul Howard Fluting Jig. So no wood turning in this one. If you wanted to see how I use the fluting jig, have a look at my fluted vase number 1. So the jig is now available from Hope Woodturning, links below. It consists of this base plate and then this stand that the router is mounted in. If I show you a different view of that, you'll see how the router is held in. 2 wing nuts with nylon washers so that you can position it where you need it to be. And I'm not going to say where that should be because you might want it in different places. You might want to do it on the center line, you might want to do it slightly off center. But once you've tightened up those wing nuts, it is very securely held in position. It's held in this grey block here. There's a bolt under here which goes up and tightens around the collar of the router. This is a 65mm collar. It comes with a 43mm adapter, but you can see the principle is very straightforward. If you wanted to put something else in that collar, then you could make yourself a reducing bush. The cutter comes out from the router, of course, and the arrangement for getting it onto the wood is slightly offset. So there's a lower bar here. On, I think, earlier models, this bar came out to the full length and then went down to the router bit. And it may have got in the way of some trying to get inside the curve of a bowl or a platter. You can adjust the depth of cut with a little movement of this arrangement here. It comes in and out, so you could also take that out of the way so that you could get your router bit out if you can engage the spindle lock, as I think I can on this one. Yeah, I can. And the wooden guide bush that you use, I made this for a larger bit than the one that's in there now. It's just held in place with a little Allen nut bolt. Got it the wrong way round, didn't I? Always doing that. So if you wanted more depth of cut, then obviously you could move this further back, or shallower, just want a little bit, then you can move it further forward. It's quite useful having a ball-ended hex key or Allen key to adjust that, because you're not going in at 90 degrees. And then you can do it all in one go rather than the sort of toing and froing with an L-shaped Allen key. So it's set up for me to do a spindle. If I go back onto the overhead, you can see that the workpiece would run along here, and having the router mounted at the back of the plate gives me a lot of stability to maneuver the router. I was moving it in this direction. When it comes to wanting to cut something that's faceplate work, clearly my router is now too far away, but you'll see there are other threaded holes here, and the router is held in place with just 2 bolts down here on this bottom plate. One that side, and where's the other one? There it is, one that side. So to reposition it is very straightforward. Put your router up to the top so you've got plenty of room to get to those bolts. And can I show you them? Maybe I can show you them on a different camera. Yeah, there we go. So with your ball-ended hex key, if you've got one, just a simple job, he says, grunting and groaning, to take out those screws and reposition it. There is an optional hinge kit that comes with it that would allow you to swing the router. Maybe for spindles that might be a bit unnecessary, but if you wanted to get curved flutes or reeds or patterns on a bit of faceplate work, then you would might want to invest in that hinge plate jig as well. It is pretty solid and heavy and substantial. You'll see I've got it on a piece of melamine faced board, and if I were to make this a bit more sophisticated, I would have something that would allow me to clamp it to the ways so that it wasn't going to be unbalanced like mine is. Mine is just resting there with gravity. Might also want to make a super deluxe one and put some T-track in so that you can have stops, so that where you can line up where you want the router to be. You can hold them on with clamps, as I did. If you wanted to move the router from that position to that position, you know, clamp it on, or as I've done here, screw it in. What I had to do was shorten this one because they were fouling each other. I wanted to go from there, I think, to something like there, and I couldn't. They were hitting. So bear that in mind. Some little stops. I wasn't entirely accurate in the little vase that I've made, but useful to have a smooth surface that's relatively frictionless to move your router along. And then I guess just some tips for using it when you're putting it into a workpiece. Don't plunge it all the way to the depth initially. Maybe just cut a shallow groove and then go into to fuller depth. You've got a lot of control over it. Don't necessarily hold it down here because of the weight of it. Maybe you want to, and obviously don't hold it here, but you can have a hand on here, you could have a hand on top, and you could move it this way. Maybe that's a bit more stable than just holding it down here at the bottom, where you might introduce some rocking. If you wanted to lessen the chance of that, you could attach it to another base plate, but I don't think that's particularly necessary. There is a fine height adjusting rod which screws into the block. I'll just let it down a little and show you what I mean. So on the top of the block here, there is a little hole which my router lead is right in the way of. A little hole here, and this threaded rod you can pass through the top of the jig, screw it in, lock it in place with a nut here, and then use this let's wind it down, star knob to adjust your height very precisely. It's coming into shot almost immediately, folks. There we go, it's almost in shot. Let's try it on this one. No, it's not in shot on that one either. Let's go back to the tailstock and change the camera a little bit. There we go. So you would lock this into position. That would then take the weight of the router. You can see that happening as I undo those two nuts. A little bit of play on it, and then if I wind that in, hopefully you can see that the router is moving up past my finger. So one revolution, 1 millimeter. It works this way, but I think it might start undoing if I do it the other way. Oh no, it seems to work fine. But you really want to lock that in place with the nut and the washer that are provided. Do up those wing nuts. And take out the rod. I haven't installed this properly yet. I'm not sure if it's something that I'm going to need to use. You know how much I love precision. So there we have it. That is the jig in all its glory, and in spindle configuration. You can buy just the jig on its own, and that will come with the base plate and the router cradle. It would come with with the bushing. It comes with all of this guide assembly, and it comes with one turned wooden what are they called, bushing. Obviously you can shape it as well. It's made of a piece of wood. If you want to put a curve on there, bring it to a finer point, then you can do that as well. The version I bought was one of the last ones I think that Paul Howard sold. Came with a router as well. I went for that because I didn't have a plunge router, or a trim router, sorry, is what's in there. I have a 24 indexing system on my lathe, but you can also purchase an indexing wheel. I haven't installed it yet, but this has, let's see, 60 holes on the outside, 40, 30 and 14, so it gives you a plethora of different angles at which to lock your spindle, and it comes with a very robust locking system with a ball bearing, and it's the ball bearing that engages with your point on with the hole. I haven't installed it yet because I say my lathe comes with a 24 indexing head anyway, but I will install that and give you some idea about how that works when I've got round to doing it. But at the moment that's sitting in the box with a few other bits and pieces. So I hope that has given you some idea about what it was that I used to make the vase. And this is it, the Paul Howard Fluting Jig, now available from Hope Woodturning. Details below. Thanks for watching.